let me start recording. I am recording. Nice. Yeah, let's
Hey
do half
world.
an hour. Hello.
Hello YouTube.
We were saying let's do half an hour Figma and half an hour Framer because they like the people that responded said that there's already quite a lot of experience. So I think like my part will be how far can we actually get with Figma. And then Zeno will do something about Framer because he's been playing with that for a while. And I think that's going to be it. I hope to be able, yeah, it's not exactly an hour anymore, but we'll see. So if I ever code too fast, please tell me, just shout. Because I'm going to try to do as much as possible. But yeah, so do share screen. That's the two. Yeah, let's do it.
And if you're watching this at home or later, feel free to follow along and check things out.
Yeah. So I have a project from my internship, and it's basically like a Pinterest kind of thing. And it's a prototype, but it's also like the design was done by one of our visual designers there. So we have like a board, and there, like in each board, you can have posts, and then each post is like has like comments on it and whatever. So I think you can actually do quite a lot in Figma already. Like at least like the click through and the like the prototype, I can at least show to someone so they will get what's going on. So this is a Figma prototype. I don't know if you've ever done anything like this, but or did you didn't even know maybe that it was possible. But it is. You can do you can do like small Figma prototypes where you can just click through, and then this is not even like the same size, but whatever. Uh, and then like as you can see, there's like overlays. So the menu bar there actually stays where it is, and then we can also even do inside like smaller pieces that are also scrolling. And then I tried to fix this, but I couldn't. But it is, I think, kind of possible to actually keep that there and then have the overlay of the delete button there as well, and then it like stays the scrolling, but currently it doesn't. And then, so we can maybe try to fix that in this workshop. But it's like it's possible to do like some scrolling inside of frame, so you can get pretty far without doing like super complicated stuff, because this is all like clicking and whatever. And then if you click X, it just goes back to whatever it was. And it can get pretty complicated, because if you I think I have participants wanting to get in. True. Yes. Deborah. Okay. So if you want to have like a presentation view, there's like a different thing, and then I'll say like, oh, I want to present these kind of things, whatever. And then I present like with an overlay. So if I hover it, it overlays whatever whatever I have set there. And then if I want to exit, that's also possible. So like you can get pretty far, I feel, without like any code, and then just like have some kind of interaction there. Is this interesting, or is this like easy? We've done this before.
Hands up if you haven't heard new stuff. Okay.
No hands.
I never Nils, I never did it before, but it feels like that you don't have to code. So how you start to build like a first page of it?
How we build like the you mean the connections between, right? Let me see. I am a host and I have no clue of how to be a host. I've never done
If you
this
make me a
before.
co-host,
There
then
it
maybe I
is.
can try manage it for you.
Yeah, well, it was mostly that I saw a lot of chats going on. So
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
yeah, but
I'll keep
okay.
a check on that.
So like, if we want to learn how to do this, is that like entertaining to people? Hands up if you want to see this, or if you want to see something different, don't put your hand up.
Can it be
Yeah,
very short, like only one example with one
Yeah,
thing? That's
exactly.
Niels, if I can maybe help steer. I think what
Yeah.
would help here is show a bit of like global component versus artboard. And yeah, overlays and stuff I think are good to show. Like, how do you position them and where do they pop off and stuff?
Yeah, that's actually maybe the interesting part, right? So we can also go into Hey Neighbor, because you've all seen this, and it's also a lot easier. Like the flow of it is a lot easier. So there we have like the phone. With the phone, and then if you click something, this is just like a second page, and it actually animates too. So maybe we can show that, because it's like, yeah, I think it's less complicated. Can I destroy like all draggy? Nope. I don't think
This
I
is
can.
what artboards tend to start looking like.
Yeah,
All
so it's
these-
like a mess of cables, but it's like not that hard. What will I do? What will I do? No preparations done at all. Yeah, I think I'll just like destroy. Oh, was that all? It's not, no, it wasn't all. Eh. Right. No. I'm just deleting like all the cables right now, just so we can do it again. No. I think I'm deleting also components. Yeah. This is not easy, guys. Okay, let's just do one of these, because these are definitely not all connected yet. So if we want to go from the overview board, so we have like one single single thing there, like a view, and then we have a lot of other views there as well. So if we say, okay, let's all, like this one is connecting to a single post or to a single board, but what if we actually want to create a second board that's called soap dispensers? So then instead of taking this board, I'll just duplicate like the board. I don't know if that's too hard. But we have like a second board here now, and we'll call this one soap dispensers, because that's a different like board that we have in this overview. So how do you connect them up? Well, it's actually kind of easy. If you click the component when you're in, like there's design mode and prototype mode. If you click design or in prototype mode, then if you click a component, it will actually show you a single, like a small dot, and it will allow you to actually drag a cable there. And then, so this is going to on-click navigate to this board. So what you could also do, instead of dragging the cable, we just click this component, do on-click, navigate to, and then select it from there. But I have a ton, so I'm not going to do it, because it's going to be something. And then, so once we're on this board, like we have, for example, this piece here, like this is like the nav bar, right? So we can say, hey, this is fixed. Like we have fixed parts within within the view. So this is like the frame, the inspiration grid view. Like that's the frame with this, and then within that like frame, you can actually have like a fixed part and a scrolling part. So everything that's in the fixed will scroll up. But what if we actually want to do like we did on the comment page, right? There is the part that actually scrolls is inside the entire thing, and the rest stays. So then you have to be a bit like more creative. So if we want to do that, then what I do is I create actually another frame, or yeah, and then within that we have like, so this is a component, but this is also a frame, and then within that there is like a group that's a lot taller than that other, like that component that's around it. So if we say, boo, 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 can I do it again? I want this to be amazing.
When you say it's a frame, like, do you mean it's like a group, or is like a frame like an
A
artboard?
frame is like an artboard. So if you
Okay.
click F, then it's a frame, and you can actually put the frame inside. And then it will say like that like weird grid,
Yeah.
right? But what I can do is I can say, okay, I want to use this frame like in multiple places, or I want to use like I can just take everything that's in here. Like, please keep interrupting me because I feel like I'm like very not structured right now.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Okay. Boo, boo, boo. I've been working for a while. Why can't I just select all
So
of
Nils,
this?
you put like a background that is the same of the other one, but fixed one, and you move only this part.
What do you mean?
Like to do this, what you are doing, you have to like make the background static to don't scroll.
Yeah, so what you do is you can just make this one like the actual size of
Okay.
whatever it is that you want to do. So this is going to be, for example, like a 1920, like this is like a regular size kind of artboard, right? This is like exactly one screen height. And then if I create within that like a frame, and I if I create within this thing, I can just drop a frame in.
I understand.
Like inside this entire frame. This is the one that I'm going to be navigating to. So if I say from like the favorites button, it doesn't really matter like where we're going from as long as I can get there. So if I click the favorites thing, then I will go to this. It's not about favorites, but and then yeah. So now I have to make sure that actually everything that's inside like this frame, everything that's inside this frame will not scale if I rescale the frame. So because then it will resize, right? So I'm going to say let's keep it in the center and lock it to the top. So now if I actually place this frame to the top and then scale the frame, you can see it like cuts it off, right? So it's like a mask almost. But then let's remove so now it doesn't even have a background. And then if I say, okay, I want to prototyping behavior. Like if I go to prototype and then say prototyping behavior, I can say I wanted to do vertical scrolling. So now if I actually go to this board, I can actually scroll it within like this entire thing. So I can still have like whatever elements I want to have here. And they will stay in place. So if I go to this one again, that will stay in place and I will only scroll this part of it.
Cool. Thank you, Nils.
Right? Yeah? Is it like clear still?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm going pretty quickly. So maybe some people will not be able to keep up. But yeah, so like there's tricks like these you can do. And like in Hey Neighbor, for example, what I did, I just created like a map, like an entire, is it like, yeah, components. So I created an entire map, and on the map I just had already a few things, like a few elements, and then as long as you were like in the map, you could just like say, is this the object? Yeah, here. So now this one. Yeah, I don't know. So, but basically what I did is I have like the entire map there, and then I could just say, okay, if you click there on this component, it will go to this page. And because it was like on the map, that's scrolling inside like a frame. So these are still all like a frame. Like the map, this is like a frame for the entire map. So this is the map component that you can see. And it's inside the maps like frame that will scroll in both directions. And then you click it, and then you can also say, like, if you go from one screen to the other, it will keep the scrolling position. Like that's also possible.
Oh. Wow, really smart. Nice.
It's like it's just about like tricking the software into doing whatever you want it to do, and being smart about like how you link up stuff. Like I know, for example, that Adobe XD in the beginning didn't allow you to drag like in a specific direction. So what I did was I had a carousel, and you could do swipe like twice, right? You could swipe once and then another time, and then if you swipe another time, it would just go back. So there's no going like one or two directions. It's just like going from each time you swipe, it's going like to the ends and then back to the middle and the ends into the middle. So like if the software doesn't allow you to do something you really want to do, just think if you can do it like slightly differently. Often there's people that already thought about it. But yeah, like there's a lot that you can already do in Figma, because as you can see, like if I go there, like there's some animation there. Like it's not pretty, but there's no real control. But the fact that it's at all possible is kind of cool. And I think, yeah, I don't know, like, is there anything else that you want to see? I think I can just do like a quick, hey, this is also cool. If you can make a frame. And then, for example, if we want to create like a text box, and this is like a name, and then just destroying like all my files here or whatever. Nothing to be doing anything with it anymore. And then surname, and I think you can do profession. And then if we create a circle, oh, that's not a circle. circle. And then if we do plugins, there's a plugin, it's called Content Reel. And it allows you to do like a first name there, and then surname. Oh yeah, it's for like an entire name. So let's say like a phone number and then an email, and then I click avatars. Say I want it to be like a male person, and then this is all like going automatically. Plugins are so powerful. And then if I actually make this component and then like drag it out a few times, I think what it does is just like create a whole bunch. I think if I now do this, yeah, they might all get a different one. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you can also do with this plugin, but I'm not sure how to do it right now. Just create like a whole bunch of ones that just like have a bunch of data. And then there's plugins that take data from like Google Sheets, and there's a plugin that actually creates a map. What else is there? There's so many ones. It's so cool. Oh yeah, there's one that has like a bunch of cool illustrations. So I can do like a colorful, and then just drop in a few like weird illustrations there. And then there's one, that one's called Blush. And yeah, so the map maker was also pretty cool, like I said. So you can just create like a map and then say, I want it to be in Manchester. And then it goes to Manchester, you say zoom, whatever. And then it zooms in a bit more. And then make map, and it just drops in like an image of that map. So it's super easy to just like get a bunch of stuff in your component without like doing it yourself. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to show. If you have any specific questions about Figma, please tell me right now.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
May I ask? So just now when you were showing this animation, like from Hey Neighbor to Liquor Dry, like you had the shapey thing move.
You mean the like this, the button?
Yeah, it moved from like the large
Yeah.
button to the small join button.
Yeah. So if I do,
Hmm.
do you want to see how I did it, or?
Yes, please.
So if I create like a button here, so I can here, this is my pretty button, and then oh, go out. Button, and then right. So this is where the button is. Let's make it a group. So now it's a group, and then if I say, okay, go there, and then, oh, no, I'm being really messy, guys. And then also, I think I can change the color. Selection colors is also super cool. They just like check whatever colors there are in like a group, and then you can just change all those at the same time. Yeah. And then if I go back to prototype, and then drag this one to there. So now we say, okay, frame is going to frame, right? And then I don't want it to dissolve. I just want it to smart animate. And it's basically magic motion like in Keynote. So if I didn't fuck up, I probably did. I did, but differently than I thought. This is the one I want to start at, right? No. I have to say that this is now my starting. Yeah, probably. Oh, this is in the frame too. I don't want to. No. So if I do this, then it just does it automatically, and that's it. Like that's all it is. So
So, mm,
just make sure that I think that that it does it by name. So now it shouldn't work anymore, right? So now it just dissolves because the name is not the same anymore. But if I change this back to 6, then it should be back. So it does the animation. That's it. And that's
so
how you do like cheap animation in Figma.
can I ask, for the
Yes.
for that instance, like in your Hey Neighbor version, like you change the size of it, but when
Yeah.
you change the size, but you still have to retain the same name. And like example, like if you make your button a component, but you have 2 components of like different sizes, how do you standardize it when you give it to the development team if you have like the same component name in like different sizes throughout your
Nils, before you jump in, can you let in Sophie real quick?
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, and Andrea as well. Hello. We're going pretty quick already. Yeah. So what if you have like multiple buttons you meant, and then have them like be a different size, right?
yeah.
Okay.
They have,
So in that case, I don't know, like what I usually do as a developer. So that's like the nice thing of like talking to me instead of someone else. um, is what I usually do is just look at what it looks like, and then like I'll think about like how it's going to be standardized anyway. So it doesn't really matter. So if you want to create like a component, then that's fine. And I think what you can do, if I create a component from this thing, right? Yeah, that's a component, and this is not a component. So you can still have it be like a different thing. It just needs to be the same name. So you can even, I think what I could have done is made this like there, design, rounded corners, whatever. So now it's rounded corners, and it's like a weird shape. And this one is a component, and this one isn't. So the components are like nice for you because they help you work in the file quickly, but it's not specific, at least not for me. It's not that useful as a developer. I generally don't look at what a component is. So I don't know if that helps.
yeah, it does. Thank you.
Anything else? And to Victoria, the Howard Pinsky guy, I actually know. I once had a top comment on one of his videos of like, I think 3,000 likes or something.
Wait, you did?
Yeah, on one of his videos. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Because he does that.
Like, no, he was like photoshopping some person, and he was like, I think he was like making some legs a bit thicker or like thinner. I don't know. And then like he was like, I don't know if the legs even still look realistic, but then you could see like a door behind it be like bent like out of shape. It was like a straight line before, and he'd like bend it out. It was like, how what are you doing, guy? But he got a lot better, I think. It was really funny. Yeah.
Oh, how long ago was this?
5 years at least. at least
my
5 years ago. Yeah.
He's like really well recognized in Adobe XD. Like he's like the
He's working for XD right now, right?
yeah, but he's like
That's
the go-to guy now for
yeah,
Adobe
exactly.
XD. But every time I watch his videos, he's like boop boop
Yeah.
boop. And, like
I might have taken it from him, you know. Very possible. Yeah.
Let's not have personal conversations when everyone wants to work more.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, is this useful? Do we want to see more? Any questions, or do we move on to Framer with Zeno?
I have a question about like Figma, but not.
Oh, you're muted.
Dude, why did you mute mid-sentence?
No, I just left the space bar. My question is, can you have input fields in Figma prototypes?
I don't think you can, but there might be a plugin.
Okay.
Let's see. No, I don't think there is like a. Where is the plugin library? There it is. What I usually do, like what I did here, for example.
Yeah, like if you want to create a new board, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Just do like, and then just create whatever word there and say, hello, Yash. The board will now be called hello, Yash. Just so you know. That's not it. I want this to be visible. What's going on? What am I doing wrong? Oh, it's white. It's black. The whole thing is. Yeah, exactly. That's what's good. Hello. That's not going to work either. Should be white. Yeah. Okay. So what I usually go away. What I usually do is select things instead of so this one I can just make an overlay. So if I click here, do prototype, say on click, and then open overlay, and then I think no, you cannot. What's this overlay called? Word name overlay. On click, open overlay. Where's my word name overlay?
It's not in the frame, right?
It's not a frame, exactly.
Fuck me.
Looks like master has become student.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's what I was wondering. Like, how is he doing it with just like a I don't know, group and not a frame? But it's fine.
Yeah, so you can just do like a frame, and then it's no group, basically.
Okay.
And now it doesn't have a nice name, right? No,
Yeah, it's
called
frame 2. Yeah.
Okay, so now if I go there, you could just like click whatever, if it should load, but then like now it's not correctly lined up. So if you've seen overlays before, it's pretty cool, manual. Just
Okay.
do like this, right? And then add a background to, I don't know. This probably works, but you know, you never know. So now if I click it, I just have like whatever, and then you can just do like an overlay, and then so like it's pretty easy, and then just like have someone click on next. But also like it's not about actually filling in information. And if you actually really want to do that and have like information and like get the information, then you probably have to do something in Framer.
Yeah.
And
well, also if you see like when you did the overlay, the overlay was on the entire screen.
Yeah,
and not
I did. Yeah, I think so.
But is that something which is by default, or can you change that?
I don't know. Honestly, probably like what you could also have done is
An
instead
easier
of,
way is to just duplicate the screen and change the name.
well, or change like the
Right.
frame background. So set the frame background to fill there, boop, say that one, and then instead of having this overlay have a background, just give the overlay to the frame.
Oh, okay.
So right now it's going to add it to, whoa, right?
Yeah.
And then I click next, and it should still work again. So yeah, I think, I don't know if that's useful, but I hope it was.
Yes.
It was. Thank you.
And then we only have like a small 15 minutes left for Mr. Zeno, but
Yes. Well, let's hope that we can maybe extend it just a small bit where possible.
Yes, let's do it.
Thank you.
All right. I'll share my screen. Host
stop
disabled
sharing
with
my
screen
screen.
sharing. Can you make me a host, Nils?
maybe. Yes, I can. Change
Thank
host.
you.
Oh.
Share screen. Cool. Hello, people. So I'll preface this by saying that
You also
like
didn't prepare.
as was said, well, look at the amount of tabs I've opened. I'm very prepared. As was said yesterday by the amazing workshop guy whose name I forgot.
Chris.
It's really important that you find the right tool for the right job, and the only way that you're going to get there is just by trying stuff out and experimenting. So Figma is really good for prototyping if you want to get something on there quickly and you want to share it with people, so you want to work collaboratively. Framer might be a bit better if you want something actually interactive. Sketch is really good if you like native Mac apps. So look, it really depends what your stack is and what you feel comfortable with. So just check things out. Usually they have a free plan. Just scroll through a website and see. With that being said, one of the new kids on the block is Framer. And
Dutch company. Woo!
yes, Dutch company as well. Dutch design, amazing people. And what they have done 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, is they launched a web version, and they basically revamped the entire product. So it's now web only, basically. Unless you're a really big professional, then you can download an app for it. And yeah, it's really fancy. It has a nice dark mode. It has a really nice design. I'll show you a bit of it. So if you log in, you can log in for free. You can create an account for free. You're going to see a little dashboard like this, and it allows you to just make a new project in your drafts folder, or you can share it with teams. Those teams all have individual plans. So if you ever want to make if you ever want to share something with a specific project group or something, you can add members to this. And then the free plan has, I think, 2 editors maximum at the same time, but you can have unlimited people viewing your prototype and like commenting on it. And you can make as many teams as possible, I think, if you want. So I've prepared a number of different little projects. Most of these are examples by Framer themselves. Right now they have 3 little tutorials that show you how to create stuff with videos on the side, so you can like work along with them as they show you how to do it. And then they also have a large amount of examples that all open individual projects to show you how a certain thing works. So I've highlighted a few of these just to show what this can do. And like the thing that sort of jumped out from what you said in the form was that you want to learn how to make stuff more interactive, preferably without coding anything. So I'll show a few clever tricks that Framer has that you can do to sort of fake interactivity like this one without having to code. And then I'll also show you a bit of the prototype that I made that includes a tiny bit of code, so you can see how I made that and why. Is that all clear? Let's move on. Okay, so this is the first thing that Framer basically lets you build yourself, and I'll step through it to show you just how it works. So similar to Figma, Framer works with these artboards called frames, and basically everything can be a frame within a frame within a frame. And you can link those frames together using different interactions. And these are the little lines that you see here. Similar to Figma, it has scrollable stuff, it has tappable stuff, so I can really easily click through here to swipe through these different pages, and then I can click on one to open it. And this already feels quite interactive, right? It's a lot more interactive than just like an artboard. And how this works is actually really simple. So I have these 3 different pages. As you can see, they're just squares, but they have been programmed within they've been placed within a page, what's it called? A page component. So I can literally make it right now. So if I go to page up top here, so the frame is just a box. Stack is an automatically aligned thing of boxes. So if I make a stack, I can show you. And then I take this one, and then I take, I should be able to, this is why you don't go off script, people, because then it doesn't work anymore.
What if you don't have a script?
That also works. That also works. Okay, doesn't really matter. Anyway, stacks allow you to stack stuff horizontally or vertically automatically. I'll show you a few examples of those in a second. Text is obviously just text. Scroll views allow you to scroll stuff. And then pages are really cool in that they allow you to connect multiple artboards together and then scroll them. So if I create a page here, page component, it's going to ask me to connect 1 or more items to it. So if I then click page number 1, it now contains just the 1 page. If I then create a second one to there, it's going to have these 2 pages, and I can already swipe through these 2, as you can see. Then I add number 3, and it's going to have 1, 2, 3 connections, and I can swipe through like this. And then I can, within this, if I have this page selected, I can choose how it controls. So I can add a little gap and padding between the different items. So if I add, let's not misclick, there you go. If I add like 20 pixels of padding, you can see that it's all a bit smaller around the sides. And then I can add a gap of like, let's say 10. And it allows me to like just see the next page around it, as you can see here in the preview.
This is also like very, like if you are a developer, like these terms like padding and gap make sense, but maybe
yes.
if you're not, they don't.
That's very true, actually.
But yeah.
Yeah, padding is basically always the stuff that is inside a box. So if I have a box, here, I can give it a certain amount of padding, and that would basically be setting whatever is inside of it more inside of it, basically, so more space inside of it. Then you also have margin, which is the stuff outside of it. So if I have this box, now there is a certain amount of margin outside of this box. So margin is outside the box, padding is inside the box. That's the 2 things you need to know, basically. So I've given this page controller some padding, and now there's some space on the inside of the box that allows me to see the stuff on the sides. Okay, now each of these pages has a link to a separate artboard. So number 1 links to number 1, number 2 links to number 2, and number 3 links to number 3. So when I am on this page controller, which automatically resizes this little artboard, or this little frame, I should say, to be consistent, it resizes this frame to whatever size the parent page controller is, or whatever the parent page is. So it just doesn't really matter what size I make it, it automatically just sizes it. Whenever I click on this, it goes to this artboard. And then if I click the back button, it allows me to go back. And that's how you make this little quite native feeling interaction already. So it's generally whatever Framer tries to like, whenever you see something really interactive and magic, it's usually just a clever mix of transitions and artboards. That's really anything that like app prototyping like this is. It's just being clever with transitions and overlays and scrolls. Does this prototype make sense? Any questions about this so far? Because this is sort of the basics of how this works.
I just put a question in the chat. Like, what do you mean when you say native looking? Is that?
I mean interactive. I just mean interactive, like anything that sort of allows you to do something more than just click and then it opens something.
Right.
Like you're quite familiar probably with when you click something, it has a little blue highlight to say like, hey, click here to make something happen. Well, this is already a bit more than that because it allows you to like scroll wherever and click and drag.
So like as close to the actual product as it can be, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll show you a few other examples if we move on. So another example that they have is this to-do list here, which is really simple. So I have this little pointer here, and if I click something, it does an animation and then it moves out. And I can do that again.
Nope, it only works for sprint planning.
There you go. Oh, it only works for sprint. There you go. So this is again a nice example of faking it.
It's still a prototype.
Yeah, it doesn't magically make all these 5 items work. And as you can see, it's really simple. It's just this artboard start. Let's go back here. It starts with this artboard, and then it assumes that you click the first item, so groceries. That transitions it to this artboard B here that you can see. And that artboard has an automatic transition hidden in the corner here that just says, after a certain timeout, so after like a few milliseconds, automatically transition to C. And then within this transition, if I click this button, it just says magic motion. So it figures out, just similar to how Figma did it, it just figures out whatever changed between these 2 artboards. And in this case, between artboard B and C, the changes that have happened is this checkbox became checked. So it understands that checkboxes can be checked or unchecked, and then it animates between them. And then this text became bluer, and the thing became bluer too. So it just does that for you. You just think about the start and the stop, and then it makes sure that it's blue. And then after a few milliseconds, it goes to C, which has these 4 items moved up. And then the first item that we clicked is secretly just moved behind this black little bar here. So it's not magic, it's just hiding stuff in the right way. Similarly, it now expects you to click on sprint planning, and then it does basically the same little trick. It animates to this one, and then it has a timeout that animates to this one. And then again, looks like magic. It really isn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Zeno, thank you. It really makes
Cool.
sense.
Okay.
I feel like that
Hey.
this one is more organized than Figma, maybe. Looks
I feel
like.
I feel like Figma is almost like more like the design tool, and this feels like the interaction tool, but like it doesn't give you as much. That's my feeling. Is it doesn't give you as much actual design freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what does happen is, if you want to design within this, you can, but they are really keen to just give you like default prototype, the default components. So if I go to default components, for example, if I want a button, I can just insert a button, and it looks like this. And it has like a few different things that I get for free. So if I get this button in here, if I go with my mouse, if I hover over this, it automatically has a little hover state, and I can press it and it gets smaller. Like, you get all that stuff for free. It just assumes that that's what you want. So if you're okay working and customizing default components, it's really easy to just get going with this, right? But if you want something very custom, if you want to make it from scratch, you can still do that in Framer, but it's going to probably take you a bit more time, and there's less like support for that stuff than in Figma, I would say.
Okay. Thank you.
But both of it is in there. So yeah, again, experiment around with it. I'll go to the next one. I'll show you an example actually of some custom components that I've made in a second when I go to my part. Okay, another great example of something interactive is this little sheet. So I have this draggable sheet here. I have this background, and then I can scroll this up. Really simple little interaction. But if you're not sure how to make this, you're like, oh, that looks like magic, right? Again, it's just clever ways of doing this. So I have this top sheet here. That's the top part. I can make it like a nice red to show, and you can see that this this main page is secretly just a page controller again. So it has these 2 different pages connected to it vertically in this case. And if I make this bottom sheet a nice green, for example, you can really easily see that this is just 2 different pages on top of each other, but it looks like a sheet with something behind it. See? So again, it's just trickery. If you want to make something behind this purple part, you can easily like make another frame and make it an overlay on top of that, basically. So if I do this and I don't know, like add an image in there. It also, similar to Figma, this has a lot of plugins that you can install. One of them is, for example, Unsplash, that allows you to just get an image. So yeah, I got this random image. And then if I want to make this on top of this, I think I can, going off script again, not knowing what I'm doing, I should be able to like add an interaction to overlay this particular thing on top of there. Hello. Yeah, choose a target there, and then make this one not purple, but see-through. And now I should be able to like add this on top of there. See, so now you have this little scrollable sheet on top of something. And as you can see, like it came in from the wrong side. So you can change the transition here by making it go upwards. And you can choose the entire animation. Like, do you want it to maybe bounce a bit? There you go. Now it's going to bounce forever. That's not a great idea. But you can make it may just give it a little bounce. And then you can see if I click this now, it's going to bounce in there. And then I can still scroll it upwards. See, very native feeling, but it's just a clever page controller that I put on top of an image. Okay, I'll show one more, and then I'll show some more advanced stuff. If you guys could stop talking, that would be great, because now I can't hit my tab bar. There you go. No, I'm joking. Feel free to talk. So this is a little wheel picker. And when I saw this, I was like, oh man, this looks really, really complex, because what it allows you to do is has this little iOS-like wheel effect, right? So I can select my birthday, November 18, and then I could do something with it if I want to. I just like give the user a choice to do that. So how does this work, right? This is quite a complex thing. Well, again, this is part of the stuff that you get for free with Framer. So I have all these months and all these days here, right? And look at all these lines. That's amazing. I have all these months and days laid out here in their own little frames. And then I simply have one page controller. Again, it's magic. That's just connected to all these different months and days. And what's cool is the page controller, if you scroll into its details, it has different effects that you can give it. So for example, if I give it a cube effect, it just automatically, see, there you go. I can make it do a little cube rotate. And then one of the effects is wheel. It also has cover flow, which is similar to if you've used the Mac before. You can see like all the different values up there, similar to how you could do with the iPod albums. And then, yeah, it also has this wheel effect that just mimics the iOS wheel. And then you can be like, wee, look at this. So again, super simple. You can make it rotate through anything, but it looks really native, and you would be wowing clients with this, right? Even though it isn't actually interactive or anything. You can't save this data anywhere, but it looks really good. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
Cool.
Zeno,
And you can,
one
yes.
question. After, if you finish it and you want to export or save some how you do it? Like,
depends on what you mean. Do you want to show it to someone, or do you want to collect data from it?
okay, first to show for someone.
Okay. Well, if you want to show someone, you can, so there's this little preview button. Just like with Figma, you can see what you've actually built, right? You can share this preview that you see here. You can share it with someone with a link, and then it just allows you to copy that link. So you can just copy whatever is in the URL bar now, and it's gonna show you, give it a second. It's gonna show you that prototype on a screen, and you can load this anywhere. You can use a web browser, so it can be on your computer, it can be on your phone, etc. One little tip that I'll give for this, I think Figma also has this. You can install a special app on your phone that is basically like the same thing as the web browser, and you can scan a QR code and then get this the same prototype just in your phone. And if you want to like go to the street, for example, and show it to someone, this is a really easy way to do it, because now there's no browser like frame around it, and you can just pretend it's a real app, right? So that's really cool about it.
Figma does also have this, but it's a really shitty implementation because you need the computer open.
Right.
Just so you know.
Yeah. There you go. So that works. As for collecting data, I'll get there in a second. Other questions? Should I move on? Okay, cool. I'll move on. So two more like cool things that you can do with Figma, with Framer are, well, as I said, there's multiple plugins. So this one really jumped out to me. So here they connected a Google Sheet, so a Google spreadsheet, to automatically fill in this list. So there's a Google spreadsheet connected to this this prototype. You can visit it if you go to like some URL. There's 3 rows in that spreadsheet. And what they basically do is they have a plugin here called Vertical Google Sheet. It's a bit of an ugly name, but what it allows you to do is just specify a URL, and it's going to look at that URL, find all the rows, and turn those into whatever you hooked it up to. So in this case, it's going to take the list item, and then this list item just has a field for each field that you want populated. So it has a name field and a job field, and in the same way, it's going to automatically take that and just put it into this page controller here. Well, I call it a page controller. It's going to be a scrollable field, as you can see. So this is really cool. If you have some live data, you can just hook it up to this, and it's going to make it into a bit more of an interactive prototype. And you can change this just by editing a Google Sheet. So that's importing data, you could say. I'll show you exporting data in a second. First, I'll also show another plugin that's called the Signature Pad. It's really simple. All it allows you to do is just draw on it. So it's called Signature. You just put that little signature field, make it as big or small as you want. And then on top of this, I can just do a little signature. Like, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't save it anywhere. Once you refresh this, it's gone. But if you want to give the client like the feeling of having signed for something, or like making a little drawing, you can really easily just like put this component in there and give them the feeling that it's a real app, right? Look at my little derpy there. So combining clever pages with like page transitions between stuff to make it feel like magic, and then adding some plugins in there for actual like cool functionality. So like there's map controllers, there is signature fields, as you can see. There's anything you can imagine, you can find probably a package for, or like find a way to hack it, basically. Cool. Does that make sense? Okay, then I will move on to the last 2. So these are sort of jumping into code now. So you've seen a lot of interactions that are completely code-free. I'll show 2 that are like make use of a little bit of code. So you're not maybe gonna understand all of this, but I just want to show the power of it. So what I have here is a really simple example, again from Framer, of a slider. And it allows you to, if I slide this slider, it's going to change the number that's above it. That's all it does. But you can potentially make this into a larger thing, obviously, or like animate maybe a size or color or whatever you want. So how this works is each little component, so each design component that I have here, this little slider, this text box, even the frame itself, is actually a piece of code that you can interact with. So it works on 2 sides of the same coin. I can change it on the design side. I can also change it on the code side, and those can influence each other. So if I go into the code layer here, it failed to load the code editor. Well, let's try that again. It still failed to load the code editor. This is the demo effect, people. Let's go again. There you go. Okay, so I have this little slider TypeScript file, which Nils will love. TypeScript is just a language. It is a version of JavaScript that is a bit fancier. I'm doing it a great disservice now. Nils doesn't like me, but suffice it to say, it's just a way for you to program these little components together. So under the hood, you don't have to know this, but under the hood, all these design components are actually React components. They're part of the React framework. It's a framework by Facebook that allows you to like program stuff in interfaces. It's really cool.
It's not happy at your number.
It's not happy. Oh yeah,
No.
correct. But that doesn't matter because it's throwing this warning, but it's not actually. I know it's throwing this warning, but it doesn't actually like.
The warning
impede.
doesn't actually matter.
No, it doesn't. It's really stupid. I know. But this again, this product is a week old, people. Anyway, so what I'm doing here, I'll just show you really quickly. So I have a little thing here, an object as it's called, that is the app state. And whatever I put in the app state gets preserved. It's sort of the memory of the application that I'm running at this moment. So right now there's only one variable inside that that app state, and right now it's the number 50, and that's coincidentally the number that it starts at. So I set a clever default state that looks that basically remembers where it should start. Now, I can make what Framer calls overrides, which are basically little pieces of functionality that I can sort of put in place of the static values. So, for example, if I have a number here, this little number, I can go to the text field, and these are all the options that the text field has. So it has a typeface, it has a style, it has a size, and then you can't see it in here, but there's also a text variable, and whatever the text value is at that moment, that's what it shows. So if I make text equal Nils, then it's going to say Nils here, right? So
Okay.
if I'm editing this, I'm actually changing the value of the text field. So I can actually override that that value, the text value, and I'm going to override it with whatever is in the application's memory right now. So that's the number 50. So if I make this, if I change this into Nils, it's gonna, there you go, should, hello. Oh, well, it's a number, so it's probably not, there you go. It's gonna change this into Nils, right? So, and what I can do is every time that this changes, that this number in its memory changes, it's gonna automatically update the display of it. So it's gonna change the number. And when do I update whatever is in its memory? Well, whenever the slider gets an on-change event. So if I interact with this slider, every time that I do so, it's gonna execute whatever is in here. And in this case, what I'm telling it to do is the number that you just received, so the new value that this slider just got, just push that into the application's memory. So whatever that number is, well, what I do is I also make it a nice round number. If I didn't do this, then it would be like a large comma number. That's, there you go. So now it's really like it's 60.07 blah, 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 blah. Yeah, exactly. JavaScript is amazing. So now I'm flooring that number to a whole number, and then I'm pushing that into the app state. So it's gonna just make it a nice round number. And then whenever it gets updated, it gets displayed. And that's how you make a little interactive piece of text. But you can also make, for example, this, make this a frame that maybe changes the color variable, or maybe it changes the height variable, like stuff like that. So you can like really easily change stuff like that if you know what to type in. Again, not expecting you to understand or remember this. I just want to show you like, oh, it's actually code underneath, which is quite cool. Does this make sense on a high level? Okay, cool. Okay, final one.
Like,
so now, oh yeah.
I had a question, but I lost it again. Oh yeah, so how do I know like which variables are available for?
That's a huge thing right now. You can't really.
Yes.
At least not that I know of.
Okay.
What I've done so far is whatever is in the sidebar here. So these different values.
Yeah, those ones make sense, but then text is like, what do you mean? But,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah, it's just trying stuff out. So under the hood, each of these components is actually has a GitHub documentation thing if you want to find it. So for example, if I go look at a slider, there you go. I think, oh well, I have found, I don't know how I did it, but I have found like the code that is powering this little slider, and you can see like all the values that it has.
It might be that it's because it's TypeScript. So if you go to slider right now,
yeah,
to the TSX, to the code, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if you say like app state dot like number, it knows that you have a number in your app state. And then if you say in like number there's like
Yeah.
values you can return. So it probably like
There you go.
gives
Numbered,
you some
arguments, maybe. Yeah, so it gives you some
okay,
hints.
yeah.
But yeah, that's
Okie
just to find out.
dokie. Yeah.
Okay, pulling it all together. So this is how I made my shopping experience simulator that you might have seen. So it's a combination of a bit of code, but also just a lot of clever like clicking around and transitioning. So as you can see, I have this starting screen, and it moves into with a little click interaction. It pushes this new view on there, and then each of these are buttons. Each of these buttons just open one of these different screens. And what's important here is that in order to make me only have to program it once and only have to design it once, I have these components here, which you've seen in Nils's project as well. So these allow me to make something only once, and then it just copies whatever is happening there. So for example, if I want to move this tree downward, or maybe make it a different emoji, I can just move it down, and it's going to change that in all of these. See how it changed? So this just allows me to only define it once. Or if I want to, for example, change the color of this track, I can make it a dark, I don't know, red, or yeah, let's make it a dark red. And it should update that in all of these sliders. And probably it hasn't, because I've overwritten it again in one place. Bad example, but that's how it works. Similar, I've made a little shopping item for here, and I've made a shopping item large for on here. And this shopping item contains a little number, and that number is actually defined here. So this is my base number. This is going to change because it's dynamic. And this is, I take this number and then I put it in here. And then because it's in this component, it's going to be the same for all of these. And what this allows me to do, I basically, similar to how I made that slider move and change a value here, I just took that exact same logic and implemented it here. So if I have this screen, let's go to this buying screen. If I slide this slider, you can see that this value changes, similar to how I made it change on the other screen. So again, there's a tiny bit of code that just intercepts whatever the value of this text field is right now, and it just makes it adaptable. The difference here is that, oh yeah?
It's good to know that you probably just stole this from the slider, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of examples that will just do whatever you need. So.
Exactly. Yeah, there's many more examples that you can choose and just see how they did it and like hack together. So what I then do is I save. Well, as you know, it was already saved in the application's memory. Whatever number this is, I'm just displaying it here too. And then once I click buy this, I just remember whatever value someone entered here. I then ask them, why did you choose that price? So what was your reasoning behind that particular price? And then I have a bit of logic in here again that remembers whatever I input here. So whatever I put here, it's going to remember, and it's going to send in a second to a database. And I also have some clever stuff that it only allows me to continue to once I have put something in there. And the way that works, failed to load the code editor. The way that works is I'm actually modifying the button's disabled state, disabled field. I'll show you. Almost done, by the way, guys. I'm wrapping up. Hope you're still enjoying this. So there you go. Okay. So this continue button here has, because it's Framer and it's awesome, it has a disabled field, and it allows me to say, like, can you actually use this button, yes or no? If it's disabled, I can't click the button, it doesn't do anything. And if it isn't disabled, then I obviously can, and it executes like what it wants to do, so it goes to the next screen. And what I'm doing in code is, there you go. It's gonna look scary, but it's fine. I'm overriding the, let's find it. Yeah, there you go. I'm overriding the continue button. There you go. With to check it to see if like whatever it has in its memory. So if the reasoning, the text that it has in its memory has a length. So if the amount of characters in the reasoning that I put in here, if that's less than 5, it's going to make disable true. So that means that it doesn't like, I can't use this button until there's more than 5 characters in there. So if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't work. 5, now it's going to enable. Or actually, no, 6 is when it's going to enable because I made it less than or equal to 5. So you see how that works? So again, I'm just checking to see, hey, whatever you know right now in your application, check whatever the length of that text is. And if it is not correct, then just like make sure it's disabled. You don't have to do that. You can also just leave it blank, but I just wanted to make sure that people actually feel something in here. And that's sort of how it works. Okay, finishing up, I do the same stuff for the age, gender, and occupation here. So I ask people to input something. I'm reading whatever they input into that field. I'm saving it to the application's little memory box. And then I'm making sure that this is a number. So if I put like Nils in here, it's not going to work. It needs to be a number. So I'm going to put 22 here, for example. I can choose one of these. And then I, again, need to put, I think, at least 3 characters in. Yeah, there you go. So at least 2 characters in there to make it actually submit. And then once I submit this, it's gonna say, thank you for your input. And in the background, again, I have a bit of smart code that when I click the submit button on click, it says here, what it needs to do when I click it is it needs to, now it's going to be a bit complex, but what it does is it sets up a little connection with Airtable in this case. And then I just ask it to authenticate myself with this API key, which I copied from Airtable. And then it just sends this data over the wire into a little box in Airtable. What's really cool about Airtable is it allows you to, like, if I make this table here, which I did, so I have this table with age and gender, occupation, item, blah, blah, it automatically generates an API for me. So it generates a way for me to, like, read this data from other places and also, like, create data from other places by just sending a request to Airtable. So I can really easily just find the right place to send it, basically, and then just send the fields along and tell it to, hey, you know that reasoning column I made in Airtable? Well, put whatever is in the application's memory right there in that column. And that's how it works. And that's how you make a data gathering tool in Framer. So again, this is a bit of an advanced version, but allows you to go from really simple, like little prototypes like this to quite complex, like little data gathering forms like this. And that's it. Any questions whatsoever?
I have a question about the guy in the t-shirt there up. You have the
Yes.
3. Yeah, like how do you, where did these come from? Where do I see that in the, how do you create that?
What do you mean exactly? How I created one thing that changes for different screens?
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
Okay, so if I make, let's say, if I make a little frame, and I'm gonna make a button in there. So let's say I make a button. There you go. It's ugly. It's automatically gonna center it though. That's nice of it. So I have this button. I'm gonna go to layers. Framer also automatically nests stuff. So if things are on top of each other visually, then they also get grouped automatically, which is really nice. So I have this button. I'm gonna call it like cool button. So if I want another button, maybe I want like a second one that does something else, but it has like different text, right? It's really annoying that I have to, like, if I ever want to change the color of this button, for example, I need to change it everywhere, right? So I need to go to a second button, I need to change it again, blah, blah, blah. That's annoying. So what I can do instead is I can take a button, right click on it and say create component. And what that does is it allows me, so it's going to change this to a master component, and it allows me to just take one of this, put it in place, and it has a purple outline now, which means that it's connected to this master, right? So I can copy another one, take one from it, and now if I change this, it's going to change it everywhere. So everything that's connected to this master, that's like a version of this component, it's going to change for me. And what I can do is, for example, if I have this button here and I want it to have different text, I should be able, maybe I can't. Yeah, I should be able to like change in this particular instance of the button, I want it to be different text. So now it's still connected to this component, but like I can override certain things of the button. So certain styles or certain parts of it. So if I now want to make all the buttons green, I can just do it with one click by changing this one. And it's still gonna remember that this is like the same button, but with a different text, for example. And that's how I did these components here. So I just made one, and then I copied it to these different things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Anything else? No dumb questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think a guy with no previous experience in any visual like software can do something feasible using this software, or is design background needed?
Well, how do you feel looking at all these examples?
Actually, like when I see a lot of buttons and like menus and stuff, I'm just become overwhelmed as hell. But I love sleek design.
Right. Well, I think that's where it starts, really. Like if you have an interest in it, and if you're like willing to just watch what the pros do and then just copy that and like learn how to design it and like how to make little border radiuses, or like feel like, oh, maybe this is a bit too dark, so let's maybe change this text color to white. It's like, it's just trying stuff out, right? And just seeing what works. There's no real way of learning this except for experimenting around with it and just trying it. So yeah. I would say
at the beginning it's just playing as much as you want, and maybe you shouldn't want to create like a super interactive thing at the beginning, but just start playing with one frame, right? Create one really nice frame that you feel like comfortable with. Yeah. And like there's some tricks that help you create like a better, like less overwhelming button layout, basically. And there's like a resource, and I know for a fact that also Zeno really likes this one. It's called Refactoring UI. I put it in the chat. Yes. It's for developers because they usually create like really dumb stuff like that just puts out what they thought of. But this is like really clearly showing how do I make like an overview, like an interface that isn't too complicated, basically. So that's like, look at that if you want some guidance. Sorry, Zeno.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's just an example of like how you make, like that's again sort of the theory, right? So if you want to make buttons, make sure that they're like nicely spaced and that there's a primary button and a secondary button. That's sort of the theory behind it, and it has nice visual examples. As for how you make it yourself, it's just getting a feel for it and just like trying stuff out. As you can see, like just place a little iPhone frame and just start thinking, well, how does an iPhone usually look? Well, it probably has like a tab bar or something. And if you don't want to go through the hassle of making it yourself, you can probably find like an iPhone tab bar, or like an iPad mini frame, or like whatever you want. Yeah, iOS tab bar,
like,
there you go. Just
they have like insane amount of UI kits available.
Exactly.
Like small components to use.
Yeah, but that's a UI kit, right? So it allows you
Yeah.
to easily like get the base styles of an OS in there. If you want to make something like, once you have like a little iPhone frame with a tab bar and maybe a top bar, now you need to fill in the middle. And filling in the middle, you can think about it as long as you want, but in the end, you just gotta like learn to make it. So just start learning to make it. Just try it out and just see if it matches or if it feels good. And then once you've done that, and once you've got a feel for that, start thinking about interactions and stuff. But again, like Niels said, like first start with just how do I even make a screen? And then let's make the screen more fancy.
I have one more request. Could you guys do a little bit of a coding one session also? Like what you spoke to, was awesome, but it was so Greek and Latin. I have no clue what it was about. So
Right.
maybe just a little basics and how do you use them like while prototyping and sharing and all of that. One more session, that'll be great.
Looking at my colleague.
I don't mind doing it, but doing something useful in an hour is just really hard.
Yeah.
Like really, really hard. Like I could probably show you the basics of creating like a single frame, like for a single size. Like, yeah, I don't know. I could try doing something, but it's hard to do something useful in an hour.
Yeah.
Well, so maybe what we can do is I'll send you a link of some stuff that's going to help you at least like the beginning. And then if you've done that, then it's like a lot easier for me to show you maybe, yeah, a bit more useful stuff.
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, even if something that gets us started off, I get at least me.
Yeah.
I have no clue about coding.
There's 1,000 different resources online available to start learning how to program in JavaScript. So I would recommend just start with those, get like a feel for, okay, what did these words mean? And then once you've like started with that, once you're able to sort of read the code, even though you don't really know what it's doing, once you're able to read like, okay, how does this work? You can start just opening up different little scripts like this and seeing like, how is it doing this? Okay, so this is going there, this is going there. Okay, I still don't really understand it, but it seems to work like this. Maybe I can add something on top of it. And that's just sort of how you learn.
Cool, we'll do that. And if you'll have some links, please throw them. That'll be.
Yeah, I've recently sent a really nice link that just gives an overview of how web development works. So it starts at like layout interface and then goes into like the JavaScript and how you host it and stuff. So maybe just go through there, like the beginning at least. I can maybe set like a baseline. This is where you have to be before I start doing workshops.
Before we work with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Done. Thank you.
Yeah, but that could be okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a question for like the data you were gathering in Airtable. Is that connected automatically, or how do you set up that and set up like what kind of data you're gathering and stuff like that?
Yeah, I had to do a bit of work for that, as you can see. So what I did is I started with this table here, and I'll jump into the code for this for a second. There you go. So I had this table and it was empty. It just had the columns like age, gender, occupation, item, price, reasoning. Those are like the things that I wanted to collect of people. What I then did is I just went to airtable.com/API, and this works for everyone, by the way. So if you have an Airtable, there's also ways to do this with Google Docs, but it's a lot more complex. So I really like Airtable for this. So if you just go to airtable.com/API, you just select the box that you've made, like the little base that you've made. In this case, I called it the data inbox because I'm fancy like that. And then it's going to look a bit strange, but what they say here, so they generate an API. An API is a way to communicate with this Airtable. So it tells you like, oh, all you need to do is send a request to this URL, and this is going to be different for your base. So just copy that URL. And then you need to authenticate yourself that it's actually you writing the change. So you need to authenticate yourself with a certain API key, and you can just, it says as well, like visit your account page and generate an API key. So I have this API key here.
What?
I can generate it, and I just need to
You just
like
do
send
show
it.
API key up top, right?
Can I? Where?
No, same page.
Yeah.
Show
Oh,
API
hey.
key, and then it just shows it in the documentation.
Ah, look at you. I was directing Yash today to do this, and I couldn't. Okay, there you go. That's even better. So it doesn't really matter how I do this, but what it comes down to is if I have this table, Airtable gives me a way to really quickly and easily like send something to this address, just like make a computer go there, and then it's gonna update whatever I tell it to do, right?
Yeah.
So once I knew that, and once I knew how to do that, or like that I could do this, I could find a way to make that connection in JavaScript. So what I did here is this is the way that you, well, Nils has an opinion on this probably, but this is the way that you can send an HTTP request, which like sends a request to a certain location. And because Framer is just JavaScript underneath, you can really easily do stuff like this. So anything you can do in JavaScript, you can do in Framer, basically, within certain bounds. So because I knew that I could send data here, I was like, okay, well, let's try if I can send data from Framer. Well, that seemed to work. And once that worked, it was just, I needed to find a way to get this data in there in the application memory, right? So I have this state object again at the top, which is a data object. And it has these placeholders for data that I'm going to be filling in. And all these items, there you go, item 1, item 2, item 3, it doesn't really matter. They just set different variables in the application memory. So whatever I have up here is going to be changed by buttons and by sliders and by input fields that I have in my,
It's like you have a notebook with like 10 pens, and each pen can write to one page of like the notebook. So you have like a notebook that you can always read. It's always open. And there's like multiple pens that go to multiple like values. And then at the end you say like, okay, I want to read like the entire notebook and send it to Airtable. And that's basically what's happening.
Yeah.
But like before you get there, you have to know a lot about programming, I feel, before you can do these kinds of things. And maybe at some point, like someone will just make a component that makes it really easy, right? So that's why it's so easy, so nice that you can just drop a lot of those components in. But right now you have to do it on your own. So.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nicely summarized, Nils. Yeah, but just to show my process a bit, that's how I went through it. So it's just discovering that Airtable could do this because I knew of Airtable, right? And then discovering that Framer could do this because I knew of Framer, and then just trying to find ways to make it work. It's really just like a big puzzle that you want to try. Yeah, that's sort of how I arrived there. But again, yeah, this is not beginner stuff. This is like what you would do after a while. I helped Josh set it up today in like a simpler version of it. But yeah, if you want that code, I can obviously give you the code, but you sort of have to try and understand what you're doing, which probably just start simple and start here, right? Start with this stuff.
Yeah.
Really good, Zeno. And it's good to understand as well what we can ask as like team leaders for the like designers, and it's nice to have like this mindset about what can be done for like a small prototype, or maybe have like this general idea. It's really good.
I'm glad you like. I'm glad this helped.
Thank you.
I think that's it, right?
I think that's it. Yeah. Happy to help. Glad it's on screen, on recording. Watch it back whenever you want to.
Yeah, I'll upload it to the hypershares where the last one was as well.
I'm just gonna.
Okay. Cool.
Gonna read the chat for a bit.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good stuff.
Amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Happy to help. See you guys later, I suppose.
Good luck with your projects today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.